Howdy! Welcome to the Generation 5 Pokemon Iceberg. The first of these mainline games were met with much criticism for their odd Pokemon designs, their linearity, the regional Pokédex that excluded prior Pokemon, among other things. Today they are commonly hailed for their strong story, unique battle mechanics, difficulty in the sequels, with many fans pushing for a return to this form in the main series. But Generation 5 is not just host to Black, White and their sequels, but many, many others with countless secrets to uncover. Level 1. The Sky. 1. Triple and Rotation Battles. Triple and Rotation Battles were first introduced in Generation 5. In Triple Battles, clearly 3 Pokemon are utilized. However, the placement of the Pokemon impacts which targets they can have. For example, a Pokemon can only attack an opponent's Pokemon in front of them or immediately adjacent to them. As there are referees in the Pokemon world, does this follow certain sports regulations in which a player can be penalized for being offsides? In rotation battles, the lead Pokemon is the only one that is able to attack. The key strategy herein is rotating which Pokemon is your attacking Pokemon to do the most damage to your opponent, while also anticipating them rotating their Pokemon to gain a similar advantage as well. Again, it seems as if the Unova region has created additional variants of the Pokemon battle sport, each with its own rule set and restrictions. This could help explain why they remain in this region, as certain countries feature unique sports, or at least, sports that see some sliver of fame particular to that region. 2. Pokemart, Pokemon Center combined. A truly convenient change, Generation 5 was the first iteration in the series wherein Pokemon Centers and Pokemarts were summarily combined. Now, the convenience store, or supermarket as they are referred to in real life, have a historical reference to the United States, which Unova is based on, specifically when referencing the first supermarket, the Memphis, Tennessee Piggly Wiggly, which opened its doors on the 11th of September 1916, is the first thing that pops up. It is ultimately hailed as the, quote, world's first self-service supermarket, end quote. While Unova seems particularly inspired by New York, could this not be linked to a more consumer-based market scene in America, acting as a source of inspiration, commodification, and globalization, which then spread to subsequent regions and generations? 3. Famitsu Score. Famitsu is a popular line of Japanese video game magazines, and a game that gets a 40 out of 40 is considered to be perfect. This is not a score that is given out lightly, however, and only 24 games have received it in the past 30 years. The first was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and the most recent was The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. The only Pokemon games to ever receive a perfect score in Famitsu are Black and White. Given the initial controversy and dislike for the games have slowly evolved over time and are generally heralded for their merits. 4. Cloud Names. Save for Black City and White Forest, all English names of cities and towns in Unova come from different types of clouds or cloud phenomena. Striation City is based on stratiform clouds, Castelia City is based on Castellanus clouds, Nimbasa City is based on nimbus clouds, and Aspertia City is based on asperitas clouds. You get the idea. Likewise, except Black City and White Forest again, all Japanese names of cities and towns in Unova come from traditional patterns. This seems to imitate Generation 1 and 2 conventions, which name cities after colors and plants respectively. 5. X-Transceiver. Other than being the new phone communication in-game, the X-Transceiver adds 2 new minigames called Balloon Catch, where the player needs to catch balloons of their or an NPC's face, and Balloon Smash, where the player needs to inflate the balloons as large as possible without bursting them. 6. Hydreigon Tank. According to interviews with Ken Sugimori in Nintendo Dream, Hydreigon and its evolutionary family were originally intended to be cyborg dragons with aspects of tanks. The Pokemon weren't scrapped until late in development, when they were revived and remade to be based on Yamata no Orochi. The tank tread-like markings on Hydreigon and Zweilous' body are a remnant of this design. We know that various wars have occurred in the Pokemon world. Could this be evidence of Pokemon exclusively bred or designed as weapons for these wars? 7. Scrapped Battle. In Black 2 and White 2, there are dialogue files for the two previous protagonists, Hilda and Hilbert, that prove that the player was going to battle against them in the World Tournament mode. They have no Pokemon associated with them, so it is unknown how difficult the confrontation against them would have been. Given how much detail is packed into these games, was it a simple matter of time as to why they were not fully coded in? As it stands, their whereabouts are generally left unknown. As you take N's Stone Reshiram or Zekrom to Dragon Spiral Tower in order to capture it, its counterpart is not seen. That is, the one captured by Hilda or Hilbert. Could they have known that their powerful legendary Pokemon would always make them a target, and they have disappeared to protect them? We see what happens when Ghetsis is able to capture and fuse a single one of them to Kyurem with a DNA splicer. What could have happened if they were both in the region and able to be captured? Would the true, all-powerful original dragon have been unstoppable? 8. Vullaby and Mandibuzz skulls. Vullaby and Mandibuzz are clearly adorned with skulls, with each wearing different halves of a single skull. Vullaby wears the top half kind of like a diaper, with its legs going through the eye sockets. Mandibuzz wears the jaw and teeth as a skirt. Ken Sugimori said in an interview that, regarding the bones around Vullaby's lower body, we came up with the idea of Vullaby using dead Pokemon's bones as a nest and growing up inside them. Mandibuzz's lower body also has bones, but with a toothy shape. So when Vullaby is in her egg and Mandibuzz is warming it, it forms an upside-down skull. We're pretty happy when we can work in those kind of details to the designs. What kind of Pokemon was this, as it does not seem to match any known Pokemon? Clearly, its lower jaw was host to a vicious set of teeth. Could this Pokemon have been hunted to extinction by Mandibuzz, now leaving behind bones that are jealously guarded and stolen for such ornamentation? And what happens when there are no more of their favored bone regalia to wear? What will they select next? 9. Shiny Charm. Generation 5 saw the introduction of the Shiny Charm, a reward received after completing the Pokédex and increasing the chances of encountering a shiny Pokemon. How does this charm do this? Does it somehow resonate with shiny Pokemon or their genetic mutations that result in their coloration? Or perhaps, assuming that shiny Pokemon are from an alternate dimension or timeline, as previously discussed in prior videos, it functions as some form of homing beacon, or otherwise weakens the barrier between these worlds, like Cosmog did with the Ultra Wormholes. 10. Seagear. Pokemon Black and White's version of Generation 4's Poketch was the Seagear. This item was one of many in the series that allowed you to interact with the game's multiplayer functions for local and online play. This feature took up the game's bottom screen and allowed players to customize it with different skins based on their likings. Once again, the ability for a small, easily worn piece of technology to have the sheer capability to trade or teleport a living creature, a Pokemon, across the globe is astonishing. But how much was it tested before release? And were there any unsavory failed attempts in which the Pokemon didn't make it through, or, at least, not how one remembered them? Level 2. The Tip. 11. Litwick Line Pokédex. The Litwick line have horrifying Pokédex entries, even amongst other Ghost-type Pokemon. Litwick's black and white entries read, Litwick shines a light that absorbs the life energy of people and Pokemon, which becomes the fuel that it burns. While shining a light and pretending to be a guide, it leeches off the life force of any who follow it. Its flame is usually out, but it starts shining when it absorbs life force from people or Pokemon. Lampin's entries read, This ominous Pokemon is feared. Through cities it wanders, searching for the spirits of the fallen. It arrives near the moment of death and steals the spirit from the body. The spirits it absorbs fuel its baleful fire. It hangs around hospitals waiting for people to pass on. Finally, Chandelure's entries read, it absorbs a spirit, which it then burns. By waving the flames on its arms, it puts its foes into a hypnotic trance. Being consumed in Chandelure's flame burns up the spirit, leaving the body behind. The spirits burned up in its ominous flame lose their way and wander this world forever. Add to this the episode in which they gleefully siphon off Team Rocket's life force, slowly weakening and beginning to kill them, and then they attempt to drag their souls to the underworld. Even as its trainer or when surrounded by its fellow Pokemon team, must it leech off of their life force to survive? And is the fact that they merely live, their flames still burning as in the mansion, evidence of all the lives they've taken or continue to drain? 12. Hidden Grottos. Introduced in Black 2 and White 2, Hidden Grottos allow the player to find Pokemon with hidden abilities or items within them. The contents of the Hidden Grottos are random, and if they are empty, for each 256 steps, they generally have a 5% chance to regenerate, usually with different content than what was inside on the previous visit. However, the chance can be increased with the Hidden Grotto Pass power. Hidden Grottos will not regenerate unless the items are obtained or the Pokemon therein are defeated or caught by the player. There are 20 Hidden Grotto locations throughout Unova. Other than this method in Friend Safari, Pokemon with hidden abilities were obtained through the Dream World function alone. So why and how do such rare Pokemon and items appear in only these locations? Similar to the other places of power, such as the Dragon Spiral Tower, these Hidden Grottos must be host to some latent power or energies that allow such Pokemon to exist, or rather, visit the plane that we know. 13. Ransei Region Shape. The Ransei region of Pokemon Conquest is shaped like Arceus, with official notes dictating that Arceus gave it its shape. Additionally, it is known to have a unique link to various mythical Pokemon. Given how many of the warlords utilize rare and legendary Pokemon, such as Mewtwo, Groudon, and Zekrom, to name a few, this land seems uniquely powerful in the sheer volume and density and presence of so many legendary Pokemon. Was this land especially blessed by Arceus, or otherwise given special treatment and protection, as each of the 17 kingdoms represents and caters to a specific type of Pokemon, such as Viperia and Poison? Of course, Fairy type has not yet been introduced, and they are glaringly absent here. Could Ransei be a form of a Garden of Eden, where essentially humans were given dominion over various Pokemon types, caring for them and acting as caretakers? However, humans began to weaponize the Pokemon, leading to the warlord's creation and the downfall of this Eden. How must Arceus look upon his creation now? 14. Starter Low Experience Yields. After beating the player's rival the first time, the starter would level up rapidly, typically to level 6. However, this tradition is broken in Unova. In order to prevent the starter Pokemon from leveling up after you defeat Bianca and gaining an advantage over Sharon, Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott all have low experience yields with a base of 28 to prevent this from happening. 15. Interactive Music. Throughout different areas in Unova, in towns, on routes, and the like, the player can find NPCs playing instruments. If spoken to, they will actually join in with the music of the area, allowing the player to pick and choose the arrangements heard throughout it. 16. Wonder Launcher. The Wonder Launcher is a multiplayer battle feature in Generation 5. Utilized in a multiplayer battle, assuming both players have the Wonder Launcher enabled, the players will be able to purchase and use items using points that are accumulated each turn. These items include battle items like X Defend, but these items go from X Defend 1 through 6, for example, raising that given stat by the correlating number of levels, i.e., X Defend 6 raises the defense stat by 6 levels. More common items such as potions and revives may also be utilized. Additionally, this also aesthetically impacts the player's sprites, showcasing the Wonder Launcher about the player's wrist in lieu of the main model. Level 3. Under the Surface. 17. Ransei is outside of time or parallel. While warlords and periodic-centric castles are found throughout the region, more modern technology and textiles are also present. Add to this that Mewtwo is a Pokemon that can be encountered, a Pokemon that was the result of advanced genetic experimentation in the modern Pokemon age. There are also tracksuits and mentions of Pokeballs, so is the Ransei region just far away from the main Pokemon world, allowing trade, items, and Pokemon to slowly trickle in, potentially leading to a period of rapid industrialization? Or is this region in an alternate timeline or dimension? Given ultra wormholes and the space-time distortion of Pokemon Legends Arceus, who's to say that such modern Pokemon and items didn't appear in these areas through them? 18. Unova Gym Leader's Violence. In the 13th episode of Pokemon Generations, the Unova Gym Leaders beat not just Plasma's Pokemon, but the trainers themselves. Elisa shocks some of them with Zebstrika, Bryson forgoes using his Pokemon entirely and resorts to hand-to-hand combat, brutally punching, kicking, and knocking out Team Plasma members. Trainers dodge Skyla's Swanna's attacks, etc. Unlike other gym leaders, Unovas are known to get directly involved in the story and the fight against the evil team. While we know that Elite Four generally represent the governing body of the region, does that not include the lower level gym leaders? Thus, they are acting as a police or government force on their own. Still, their propensity as the good guys to directly attack and harm other humans, which is what we have seen many criminal organizations do time and time again, does seem a bit jarring. Just how far are these leaders willing to go to ensure their truths and ideals reign supreme? 19. Ransei was a supercontinent. Some theories suggest that Ransei was the original continent, with what is now known as Sinnoh as its heart, before Arceus separated everything. Most regions, debatably, can be accounted for, but what of Kalos and Galar? Perhaps due to the resurgence of fighting and wars, Arceus, or the very legendary Pokemon that blessed these lands, allowed them to move apart and break, creating new regions that we know today. Others still have suggested kind of the opposite, that Ransei is the future of the Pokemon world, bringing together all of the different regions into one. 20. Munna Foreshadowing. In Pokemon Red and Blue, there is a picnicker trainer named Carol who wants to meet a chunky pink Pokemon with a floral pattern on its body. This description is spot on for the 5th generation Pokemon, Munna. Was Munna a planned and later scrapped design so early in development, or was it always planned, and a region that suited it was yet to be realized? In fact, Munna and Musharna do have some interesting connections to the dream world in its research. Was Munna always intended to have this correlation, meaning Game Freak held off on its introduction until they could develop the technology to code such a feature? 21. Pokemon Conquest Coma. Created by Urxia on DeviantArt, after the player encounters Arceus and beats the game, the character falls into a coma. Why? Because Arceus radiated so much power, and it was by your character so much that, after it left, it was too much for a mortal body to withstand. Some spoilers for Legends Arceus here, but we know that Arceus merely gives a part of itself to the trainer. What if the character of Conquest was exposed to the full thing? Thus the player fainted and began the coma. All of the many stories thereafter are the result of the player character's mind mixing the people they saw and began making up stories and guesses for each one. What if a contest happened for all the female warlords? An endless sea of possibilities opens up, and now they have all the time in the world. And once you finish all those mini-stories, the player wakes up. Of course, no one tells you what happened. Even still, other players have been known to just give up on the mini-stories and restart the game to be with their Eevee partner once again. Thus, in the old timeline, they never wake up. Everyone plunges into a deep sadness, and then, Nobunaga, seeing his chance, he takes back most of these locations, with everyone quickly going back to their spots before your character came, and thus repeats the cycle. 22. Sky Drop Glitch. Known as the Sky Drop Glitch, it can prevent an enemy Pokemon from acting. This glitch can only be activated in a double battle and if one of your Pokemon knows Sky Drop, with the other knowing Gravity. To activate it, you should use Sky Drop on an enemy Pokemon, which will drag both of them into the air. When your other Pokemon uses Gravity, it will cancel out Sky Drop and the two floating Pokemon will drop to the ground. The enemy Pokemon will no longer be able to act in battle, as the game still considers it to be in the air. The glitch will not stop until the user of Sky Drop is knocked out or the battle ends. 23. Black-White Pokédex. The original Black and White Pokédex features a full roster of brand new Pokemon to be encountered throughout the main game, without any Pokemon from prior generations, much to the ire of many fans. However, geographically, there could be a precedence for this. Generations 1 through 4 all took place in regions based on Japan, thus they were in relatively close proximity to one another. Unova, however, would be halfway across the world in a region based off of America. The lack of a diverse Pokédex is evidence of globalization or alliances with other regions not existing at that point in time, so no invasive species or trainers visit with their Pokemon. This is remedied in Black 2 and White 2 when the other region's Pokemon are introduced into the wild and in trainer battles. It is estimated that approximately 2 years have passed between these two games. So what has happened to allow such a stark change in the environment? A. Unova was weakened. After the events of the first games, the champion was beaten by N, the Pokemon League, the very symbol of governing power for any region, save for Alola, was attacked, and it seems like Unova was vulnerable to further attack. On the other hand, in order to rebuild, Unova could have reached out or gotten offers from other regions to help and rebuild. Through these communications and trades, more Pokemon were introduced. B. Globalization and trade occurred. As a part of the events of the game, the Unova region decided to expand its trade routes and alliances, allowing them to call for aid should something like this occur once more. C. Ghetsis and Team Plasma. Potentially, in an attempt to further destabilize the region, they introduced competing species in order to upset the natural balance of the region. Perhaps this was another attempt to attract N, as we see in Black 2 and White 2 that N tries to confront Ghetsis, which is what he wanted, to get closer to the legendary Pokemon in N's care. Thus, by causing as much strife as possible, he could draw his target out. Level 4. Center of the Iceberg. 24. PETA Parody. When Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 were close to releasing, PETA released a parody of the original Black and White that aimed to prove that the series was all about abusing animals. Pokemon Black and Blue was a flash game where you played as a group of Pokemon that had to fight off evil human opponents who wanted to capture and torture them. Many of the Pokemon shown therein featured wounds, bandages, and the like, while humans were crazed, violent, Mad Max-style characters. 25. Shiny Haxorus. The Shiny Haxorus is a guaranteed Pokemon in the Nature Preserve. It, and the permit to fly there, is obtained by seeing all Pokemon in the Pokédex, save for Victini, Meloetta, Keldeo, and Genesect. The Nature Preserve is noted as being far away from the Unova region and is not shown on the map. The only way to get to this location is through taking a plane ride with Skyla from Mistralton City. Why is this preserve so guarded, requiring a special permit to access it, and why is a special shiny Haxorus found there? Nature preserves are noted to, quote, provide a healthy and protected habitat for many threatened and endangered species in order to help increase their population, as well as generally aiding and encouraging biodiversity. Let's start with the biodiversity. Pokemon from other generations, as well as Unovan Pokemon, can be found in this preserve, and this is the game in which we see them in the wild of Unova proper. Could this be an attempt to assess whether some Pokemon from other regions can cohabitate with one another before their proper introduction? It would make sense that the governing bodies of Unova may be hesitant to expose their region to a series of unknowns. As for the former, could some of these Pokemon, such as Golduck and Buizel, have existed in Unova and flourished long ago, meaning that these are some of the last natural descendants of these Pokemon that are trying to be preserved in a wild population? Or perhaps they are additionally rare all over the world at this point in time, and this area is hidden in order to increase their numbers and prevent poaching. But what about the shiny Haxorus? There is only one guaranteed. Could this have simply been a rare specimen that was found and brought here without people knowing what it is? Perhaps they saw it as a rare specimen that could pass on its genes. Or perhaps this nature preserve, like the hidden grottos, is one such special source of power. 26. N stands for Nuzlocke. Although we know N's first name is Natural, many believe the meaning of the N in N's name is for Nuzlocke, or the Pokemon rule in which after a Pokemon is knocked out, you can't use it again. Support for this theory is that every time you battle N, he uses different Pokemon each time. Throughout his main story battles, a Pokemon is never reused. While some fans believe they died, as many Nuzlocke signify it as such, others simply release them, as N does. 27. N's released Pokemon. As touched on in the previous theory, N's Pokemon have been found to be released. Once the player has used the memory link function to see a flashback of N releasing his Pokemon, they can encounter these Pokemon in the wild and catch them. The only exception to this is Zorua, which can be received as a gift from Rude without the need to use memory link. Once caught, these Pokemon will have N as their original trainer and N's trainer ID number. As for a more introspective look, N does not like battling Pokemon and believes they should all be free. Thus, N fights alongside his friends, quickly releasing them so that they can be free once more. He has no desire to permanently keep them, but understands that, in order to fight the player and other trainers to realize his seeming goal, he must go against his ideals, at least temporarily, in order to try and accomplish them. His Pokemon fight for him because they choose to do so, and they may choose to leave in the same fashion. 28. Pledge Grove. There is a secret area hidden behind Alder's house called Pledge Grove. If a player brings a Keldeo here, it will trigger a short cutscene where the spirits of the Swords of Justice appear, and it can learn Secret Sword and transform into its Resolute form. As noted by the player's mom, the scoring in the rock was made by Pokemon, specifically the Swords of Justice, Cobalion, Virizion, and Terrakion, who had taught Keldeo. 29. Late Evolutions. Various Pokemon evolve late or at much higher levels than what we have seen in prior generations. While certain rarer Dragon-type Pokemon, such as Dragonite from Gen 1, evolved at levels 30 and 55 respectively, various Stage 2 and other 3-stage Pokemon in Unova exceed this. For example, Mienfoo evolves into Mienshao at level 50, Pawniard to Bisharp at 52, Rufflet to Braviary and Vullaby to Mandibuzz at level 54, Dano to Zweilous at level 50, and Zweilous to Hydreigon at level 64, and then Larvesta to Volcarona at level 59, and so on. Even those that evolve lower than the ones mentioned above are generally in the 40s, which is still considered to be quite a high level, such as Elgium, Golett, Fracture, Litwick, Clang, Frillish, Vanillish, etc. Given the uniqueness of this region, this could be imitating what is known as RK selection theory. the R selection. Selected organisms have harsh selection pressures and need to mature quickly to reproduce. However, the K selection, selected organisms have fewer predators and dangers, so the advantages afforded by maturing slowly, such as greater brain development, among others, survive with more frequency. Let's look at some of these slow-evolving Pokemon. Pawniard is protected by Steel, and the Fighting-type Pokemon of the region, which it is weak to, do not have entries indicating any form of predation on it. Thus, maybe it has strong defenses and few natural predators. Vullaby is essentially a chick, and is probably high up in a nest on a cliff face or tree, being a vulture chick. We know that it is kept in such nests littered with bones that Mandibuzz brings. Could they also serve as a grotesque threat or deterrent? Of course, one could conclude that its main predator would be a bird of prey, which would come from above. Adult Mandibuzz are known for their predatory nature and should be able to defend their nest against predators if need be. And Mandibuzz and Vullaby have good defense stats. Going back to a predatory bird of prey, this could be Braviary. However, note that Braviary and Mandibuzz lines are exclusive to each game, so they are not competing with one another, which eliminates it. Larvesta is a larva, meaning it spends most of its time underground, so its main predator would most likely be Excadrill, and the chances of it potentially happening across one are quite slim. In other words, there are overall less opportunities for predation by other Pokemon in the Unova region, perhaps due to the lack of invasive species, and it seems like many Pokemon may fall under the care of their stronger, more evolved parents. Akin to how some higher evolved creatures, such as humans, require additional protection and rearing until much later in life and the onset of adulthood. Of course, as usual, bug types are generally weak and preyed upon, so they need to evolve fast to survive and reproduce, similar to the other regions. 30. Ghetsis injuries. In the opening introduction of Pokemon Black and White, Ghetsis can be seen giving the crown to N. He never shows his right hand. While giving the crown to him, his right hand is somewhat seen, but it is discolored, grayish, which may indicate an old injury. His right eye is injured or otherwise hidden as well. What happened to him? We never see his eye or his right hand uncovered from the gloves that he wears. Could these be injuries sustained from one of the many Pokemon wars? Physically disfigured, he now attempts to control all Pokemon and rule over others. And were these injuries actually made by a Pokemon or a person? Level 5. Lower Half. 31. Abyssal Ruins. The Abyssal Ruins was once a thriving city home to the Protectors, an ancient civilization who guarded Meloetta from falling into the wrong hands. In ancient times, Meloetta sunk the city to the Undella Bay seabed after people began fighting over control for it, the forces of nature, and the world. Survivors fled to a hidden location on the Unova mainland, where their descendants continued to protect Meloetta. When exploring these underwater ruins, should the player meet the maximum of 500 steps, a mysterious water torrent will push the player out. What is this water torrent and why is there a limit? Is it some Pokemon or protective force that is gradually disturbed by your presence, pushing you out once it deems you a persistent nuisance? As extrapolated upon by Wide-Eye Esper on Reddit, Ghetsis and N are most likely descendants of the royal line whose relics lie in the Abyssal Ruins. The theory states that Ghetsis' main reason for wanting to conquer Unova, and commit even the most violent and immoral acts in order to do so, is because he believes it is his birthright to rule it, being a descendant of the Harmonia family line. N's surname is also Harmonia, but whether he too is a descendant of the Harmonia family line, or Ghetsis just gave him that name when he took him in, is hard to tell. But all we do know is that Ghetsis takes the Harmonia name extremely seriously, almost as if it were a status symbol. At one point he says, After all of that, do you think you're still worthy of sharing the name Harmonia with me? You good-for-nothing boy. The name Harmonia is never directly mentioned again after that, and the events that took place at Inn's castle in black and white. However, it is heavily implied that the king of the now sunken abyssal ruins in Andela Bay is named Harmonia and was revered as a great and honorable ruler that brought prosperity to his people, even more so in Black 2 and White 2, when Zinzalin offers his help in the postgame to decipher the runes within the ruins. Zinzalin. I have papers that Lord Getsis left behind. With these, you can read the ancient scripts in the abyssal ruins. As my own small, little way to atone for my sins, I'll read them to you. The fact that he only shows up in Andela Town because he wants to learn more about the ruins because Getsis left these notes behind may imply that Getsis himself may have some relation to the abyssal ruins, hence furthering the implications that the king that ruled these ruins went under the name Harmonia. Of course, the game never tells us this directly. The name Harmonia is never shown in any of the runes in the abyssal ruins, but the number of blotched out letters, i.e. symbols Zinzalin cannot translate, is equal to the number of letters in Harmonia in every language the games are translated in. Zinzalin. Oh yes, now I see. There are some characters I can't recognize, but based on the context, an extremely wonderful king was laid to rest in those ruins. If that king has descendants, maybe those special powers were passed down. This quote alone may explain Getsis' ego and perfectionist nature, viewing himself as a perfect being and the only one fit to be the absolute ruler of Unova. It also explains his outfit in black and white and Team Plasma's medieval motif in those games. However, Getsis isn't the only antagonist in a main series Pokemon game that is descendant from his native region's royal bloodline. Lysander is as well, and X and Y is much more upfront about Lysander's relations to AZ's younger brother than Black and White and Black 2 and White 2 were with Getsis and the Harmonia bloodline. Lysander. True, I'm a descendant of the king's younger brother. That being said, that story is 3,000 years old, so it might not be entirely reliable. Long ago, the king of Kalos sought to take everything for his own, and he created a terrible weapon. Then the fire of destruction was unleashed. That is the legend that has been passed down. What the king of Kalos did was reprehensible, but the ultimate weapon did manage to wash the world clean of that era's filth. While Lysander's relations to the Kalosian royalty are explicitly stated, as well as what AZ had done in the Great Pokemon War that had taken place in Kalos roughly 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago. This date is mentioned over and over again within X and Y's story. However, there is one other time this time period is mentioned in a previous game. In all the 5th gen games. All of the relic items found within the abyssal ruins are stated to have been made in a civilization about 3,000 years ago. The relic crown's item description is, a crown made in a civilization about 3,000 years ago. A maniac will buy it for a high price. The relic crown's item description in Generation 6 is, a heavy crown made by an ancient civilization about 3,000 years ago. All the other relic items bear the same description, almost word for word. So this means the reigns of AZ's kingdom in Kalos and King Harmonia's kingdom in Unova ran at around the same time. This could be further implied by the presence of the statues of Reshiram and Zekrom in the Parfum Palace. NPCs state that the statues were offerings given by the Unova region. It is also confirmed that AZ built the Parfum Palace and may have ruled in it. If the player visits Parfum Palace after beating Diantha and completing the main story, interacting with a painting of the king will have the player character instantly recognize it as AZ. So what does this mean? Was the Great Pokemon War of 3,000 years ago fought between Unova and Kalos? Or were they allies against another enemy? The war is only ever referenced for the sake of AZ's backstory, his loss of Floette, and the many lives that were lost to end the war and revive Floette thanks to the ultimate weapon. The details of it are just left unclear. The Abyssal Ruins runes state that the king fought against hatred, acted with love, and he and his people found all life precious, and that war creates tears. Of course, all of these descriptions are extremely vague and may not have anything to do with the Kalos War at all. All these descriptions really do is emphasize how great of a king Harmonia was to his people during his era. But all of this information at least confirms that both Unova and Kalos did intermingle with one another a fair amount when AZ ruled 3,000 years ago. The idea of a Pokemon Legends Kyurem gets more and more interesting by the day. 32. Strange House. As previously covered in my first Pokemon Iceberg, a strange house can be found abandoned among the dusty tumbleweeds in the arid landscape of the Reversal Mountain base. A lunar wing is eventually found amongst the scattered and destroyed remnants of the house, in a room with the only light on. We later learn and see the ghost girl from this building on the Marvelous Bridge. Unlike other ghosts that move off screen, she literally disappears before our eyes, also shocking the man she is standing next to. She has 3 lines of dialogue from the 3 encounters. An everlasting dark dream. An endless dream of darkness. Dad, Mom, Abra, where are you? In the dark dream, I heard my dad's voice. Forget about the lunar wing. Please stay here with me. Oh, the lunar wing. I can't take it now, but it'll be okay. Please return the wing to the Pokemon. I was waiting on the bridge so I can return it myself. The lunar wing from the Pokemon Cresselia is able to dispel nightmares, which the girl was trapped in. Her psychic-type Pokemon, Abra, perhaps induced or tried to save her from the dream, and as we eventually get her line to stay with her, as she hears her dad's voice, remarking that obtaining a lunar wing was a lost cause and they needed to act. As shown in the Mystery Dungeon series, a psychic-type Pokemon is capable of transporting others into dreams and nightmares, which Abra most likely did here in lieu of the lunar wing to save her. Failing, the girl, never waking, dies in her fitful sleep. She no longer needs the wing, brought to her home, the strange house, too late. Wanting to return the wing to Cresselia, the girl waits on the Marvelous Bridge, thankful that, at last, the wing can be returned and she can rest. 33. Relic Passage. Castelia sewers lead to the Relic Castle through the Relic Passage. Through the north side of the sewers, players can explore a tunnel region called Relic Passage, which, as the name suggests, leads them all the way to Relic Castle in the Desert Resort. This isn't simply a shortcut back to the castle, as it is the only way players can reach the lowest floor of the castle, which isn't otherwise accessible from the main entrance. At the end of the maze located on the lowest floor, players can find a wild Volcarona, which is the only place it can be found in both Black and White and Black 2 and White 2. While psychic or ghost trainers are known to utter odd commentary, one in the Relic Passage claims, "It's coming. It's coming, the ancient spiritual power." What could it mean? Volcarona does seem to have some sort of reverence, but could it be something else? Yamask may be found here at the Relic Castle, so could it be referencing these ancient spirits of the past? The Relic Castle is the ruins of a city built by one of the twin heroes and his corresponding dragon, and are said to have been the heart of a civilization for people and Pokemon in the Unova region. The civilization dates back to at least 2,500 years ago, at which point it was at its peak. Could one have ruled the Relic Castle and another the Abyssal Ruins? 34. Ceremony of Revival. Shown in Black and White episode 121, the Ceremony of Revival is used to resurrect Reshiram from its Lightstone, its dormant form. A series of glowing red patterns and inscriptions writhe across the stonework, the ancient dais and architecture denoting the civilization that once flourished there long, long ago. Could they have worshipped the dragons, creating rituals or summoning circles to call upon them there? Or are they these magicians with powers of their own? Is this the ceremony that takes place at Dragon Spiral Tower when the player brings the light or dark stone there? We do not see the same glowing inscriptions, So is the Pokemon somehow bound or forced from its dormant state through this ceremony? 35. The Shadow Triad. Some since disproved theories suggest that the Shadow Triad are the Striation Gym Leaders. The Striation Gym Leaders did not come to the rescue with the other Gym Leaders to fend off the Sages towards the end of the first game. They're all male, their cover as Gym Leaders would help them fly under the radar for Getsis, etc. However, in the manga, when they tested Team Plasma's newest creation, Genesect, they were interrupted by the Striation Gym Leaders Salon, Cress, and Chili. They couldn't possibly exist at the same time. Or could they? Getsis is noted as saving their lives, which is why they are indebted to him. There are those that believe that these are the Striation Gym Leaders, but from another timeline, having become fallers themselves, wiping much of their memories and allowing them to cleave to the one person that helped them, Getsis. 36. Dream World. Generation 5 featured a system that allowed one to transfer their Pokemon to a website called the Dream World. Here, you'd be able to send Pokemon to the internet to collect items and meet unique Pokemon with their Dream World or hidden abilities. A wholly separate world with homes, gardens, and the like could all be found. Was this truly a dream? Were Pokemon and players able to interact in a linked, shared hive mind facilitated through a dream? Of course, they would have to be linked through Musharna's Dream Mist. Its dex entry reads, "The mist emanating from their foreheads is packed with the dreams of people and Pokemon." Could this explain it? All Pokemon that interact with such dream mist can thus come together in this plane of reality when under its influence. Does this mean that the hidden ability Pokemon you catch from this world come from a wholly separate world, where such abilities are the mainstays, and they are able to interact with yours through the mist? Or is it perhaps a simple matter of utilizing the subconscious dreamscape to access one's hidden ability or potential that is otherwise blocked from the conscious mind? 37. Rosa Whitley background. Rosa has a counterpart in the manga named Whitley. She and her mother were former members of Team Plasma who went to hide in Aspertia City where the Black 2 and White 2 games start. Rosa begins the game, of course, in Aspertia City and is presumably under her new fake name, Rosa, as a means to start fresh. Thus, many fans have interpreted her journey through Black 2 and White 2 as a form of redemption story for her former crimes. Still, other fans have wondered if her and her mother's crimes will eventually catch up with them, and they will have to pay for their transgressions. 38. Bitter Cold. In Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity, the Bitter Cold, or Great Crystal, is a giant ice creature resembling a snowflake and serves as the final boss. Interestingly, it is not identified as a Pokemon, and it attempts to destroy the world. Why? Hydra states that it was spawned from the negative emotions of Pokemon. Any Pokemon that get close to the Bitter Cold are suffocated by its negative power. However, a human may not be affected by this power. Could Pokemon's hatred and anger, such as a Pokemon like Zoroark that is naturally distrustful or hateful of humans, culminate into such a force? And how much fear and anger must have come together in order to create such a powerful, world-ending being? While the timelines of the Mystery Dungeon games are relatively unknown, could not this coincide with one of the many wars of the Pokemon world? The death, fighting, and betrayals by their human trainers, and the like, culminating in the very worst of all of them. 39. Human pollution and commercialization. The presence of such Pokemon, such as Garbodor and Trubbish, literal trash Pokemon, demonstrates the adaptation of Pokemon to the industrialization happening about them. Its white Pokédex entry reads, "The combination of garbage bags and industrial waste caused the chemical reaction that created this Pokemon. This is a man-made Pokemon that continues to feed off of the very trash people make. What chemicals were expelled that they were able to create life? Or perhaps, was it enough to mutate an already existing Pokemon, forcing an evolution as an evolutionary stone, moss rock, or other object might? As for Vanillite, Vanillish, and Vanillux, could these be similar adaptations caused by Pokemon? What would they have to gain evolutionarily from this form? Vanillite's Black Pokédex entry reads, "Snowy mountains are this Pokemon's habitat. During an ancient ice age, they moved to southern areas. So, in this instance, have people imitated this Pokemon line's forms for their own treats. It is not uncommon for food and physical commodities to be modeled after Pokemon. Thus, the Castelia cone, clearly imitating Vanillite, was created. Besides their likeness, did they contribute anything else to this dish?" 40. P2 Laboratory. Hiding away in Route 17 is a small island housing a lone building that has seemingly been abandoned. A former Team Plasma research facility, this was the location of a Genesect's revival and subsequent upgrades, which will trigger an event if players bring a Genesect back to the laboratory. Aside from obtaining the Genesect Drive items, players can also find the dubious disc item to evolve Porygon 2 into Porygon Z, as well as the Plasma Frigate if they have defeated Team Plasma once and for all. Genesect was revived from a fossil and technologically enhanced by Team Plasma. Its Black Pokédex entry reads, "Over 300 million years ago, it was feared as the strongest of hunters. It has been modified by Team Plasma." Fans have connected this dex entry with Kabutops' pre-evolution Kabuto, whose black and white dex entry reads, "It is thought to have inhabited beaches 300 million years ago. It is protected by a stiff shell." Besides the similarity in time, Kabutops and Genesect have quite a few physical similarities and proportions. Of course, a cannon has been added to its back and, as stated, it was modified to be a capable weapon. Level 6. Bottom of the Iceberg. 41. Godstone. The Godstone is an unobtainable item in Generation 5. In Sinnoh, we found out that Arceus was God, or at least the god of Pokemon, so perhaps this Godstone is actually Arceus, akin to how the Dark and Light Stones were the dormant forms of Reshiram and Zekrom. Generation 5 was meant to be a reboot of the series, trying to recreate the magic with an all-new, unique Pokédex. Perhaps this is evidence of Arceus, or God, starting it all over again, lying dormant after exuding his power over his new creation. 42. Ghetsis leaves 3 stones to player. During the postgame, Sharon reveals that the Shadow Triad has helped Ghetsis to escape. When the player meets the Shadow Triad for the first time on Marvelous Bridge, they reveal that Ghetsis is currently on the run. He has lost everything, including his Pokemon, and only the Shadow Triad are still loyal to him. For some reason, he has ordered the Shadow Triad to stop looking for him and to deliver the player the Adamant, Lustrous, and Grisius orbs. These orbs go to Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, the legendary Pokemon of the Sinnoh region. Why did Ghetsis have them, and why would he give them to you? Is this a long con to get the player to acquire them so that he can have them taken from you and gain the power for himself? Is he merely getting rid of more evidence of his crimes in a place he doesn't think the police would look? Or, however unlikely, has some part of him changed, realizing he is not the man capable of wielding such power? 43. Rocket Grunt's House. One of the more memorable Team Rocket grunts in Gold and Silver was the one in Cerulean City who steals the power plant part and hides in Misty's gym. This grunt claims he will return Team Rocket to its former glory in a foreign land, but players can see what actually happened to him in Black 2 and White 2. Located in Icarus City, hiding in plain sight in one of the houses, this grunt has settled down and started a family, noting he fell in love shortly after the events of the prior games. In Black 2 and White 2, former members of Team Magma and Aqua from the Hoenn region can be found in this same house. Are these all ex-criminals that have tried to start over, perhaps connecting and supporting one another? Add to this Rosa and her mother hiding out in this region, it seems that many former criminals attempt to start over here. 44. Nature Trio Quartet. Warning for some more spoilers from Pokemon Legends Arceus. A 4th member of the original Weather Trio debuted in the new game, Enamorus. This Pokemon turns the traditional Weather Trio into a quartet, and adds to their original meaning. The 4 represent the 4 cardinal directions in Chinese and Japanese lore. Enamorus's Therian form looks like a turtle with a snake on it, which is most likely based off the black tortoise of the north, also known as Zanwu and Genwu, which is a spiritual being that adopts the form of a turtle with a snake. The black tortoise is a part of the 4 symbols, with 3 other spiritual beings, which are the white tiger of the west, azure dragon of the east, and the vermilion bird of the south. The original Weather Trio's Therian forms seem to align with this, with Landorus looking like a tiger, Tornadus being a bird, and Thunderous looking like a form of dragon. Each of the myths of these creatures is most closely associated with a cardinal direction and a color, but also additionally represents other aspects, including a season of the year, an emotion, virtue, and one of the Chinese 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. All of them coincide with weather or seasonal changes, with Enamorus seeming to herald elements of spring. 45. N is a Zoroark. This is a theory previously discussed in my main Pokemon Iceberg, but it bears repeating for the sake of its importance to Generation 5. N is the green-haired human king of Team Plasma and has a fondness and an ability to speak with Pokemon. There is a long list of Pokemon that can speak to and understand humans, but very few humans that can understand and translate Pokemon. To name a few, Meowth of Team Rocket, Mewtwo, Lucario from the movie, etc. This leaves N as one of the rare humans that can actively understand, interpret, and communicate with Pokemon. A Pokemon with an interesting illusion-based ability, Zoroark, is introduced in this generation. Interestingly enough, N also gifts a Zorua, Zoroark's pre-evolution, to the player trainer. Zoroark and Zorua are able to actively take the form of another Pokemon and, on multiple occasions, have shown the ability to transform into a human, although on these occasions it could not really speak the human language. N's backstory reveals him to grow up alongside abused Pokemon that had been mistreated by humans. It is noted that he was forced to grow up amongst these Pokemon by his adoptive father, Ghetsis, and no biological parents are ever mentioned, noting that he was orphaned and left in the woods. Could he not have Zoroark parents that were captured or killed, like the Marowak in Pokemon Origins? During this time, N vowed to make a difference and become the hero for these Pokemon. Why was he amongst these Pokemon? Supposedly so that he could be manipulated into believing in their plight and to fight against humanity, like Ghetsis planned. But doubly so if he, a Pokemon, saw the root of his kind's plight was done at the hands of humans. And, similar to Meowth of Team Rocket, was similarly motivated to learn to communicate with humans in order to realize his goal, to bring an end of the mistreatment of Pokemon by humans. Ghetsis claims he is the one who made N who he was, and saw the potential in him, perhaps noticing his abilities and the latent potential to create a figurehead that understands Pokemon in order to realize his master plan of relieving all trainers of their Pokemon, leaving him with his and ultimate control. As for his form, N bears a marked resemblance to Ghetsis, perhaps emulating the childhood and then adolescent pictures of his adoptive father when choosing a human form. Add to this N's childlike bedroom with children's toys, a basketball, and skate ramp, it seems like his human upbringing was infantilized and unstructured, befitting the games and amenities one would give a pet or Pokemon. Ghetsis also refers to N as a freak, not unlike Meowsy does to Meowth, another talking Pokemon. In addition to these similarities, N's name is incredibly odd, almost as if a child or Pokemon with only a fledgling understanding of some human words was allowed to create its own name, as a child might when given a dictionary and without context to appropriate naming conventions. Breaking it down, here are some of the implications. 1. Natural. A. By definition, something that is natural is not made or caused by humankind. B. Nature, animals, Pokemon are all natural manifestations of the Pokemon world. C. N is trying to act natural as a human to avoid detection, as if his cover as a talking Pokemon is unearthed, it might discredit his mission and message. 2. Harmonia. A. In Greek mythology, Harmonia is the immortal goddess of harmony and concord. B. This falls in line with N's desire to bring peace and harmony to Pokemon by freeing them of the cruel treatment of people. Note, this name is also featured on his basketball in his room and is shared by his foster sisters that were similarly taken in by Ghetsis. They too can understand Pokemon. Perhaps they are Zora or Zoroark as well. 3. Gropius. A. Perhaps derived from Walter Gropius, a German architect hailed as one of the pioneering masters of modernist architecture, which may emulate N's desire to serve as the architect and creator of this new free world for Pokemon. B. Grope. Could be used as a root of grope, as in N is groping or searching and scraping to reach his goal. Eus is the suffix added to a noun in order to form an adjective meaning made of or belonging to that noun. Interpretation. Together, the name Natural Harmonia Gropius could be interpreted as the architect creating or made of nature that seeks to bring the world to harmony through reverting it back to its natural setting. N is made of natural and harmonious means and seeks to be the architect to create a world that embodies these principles. While N's ultimate goal of protecting Pokemon remains intact, he maintains his human form to speak for the Pokemon that are unable to do so themselves. 46. Seasons. A new mechanic in Generation 5 was the cycle of seasons. Pokemon such as Deerling and Sawsbuck changed forms based on the weather conditions they were subject to, and the weather trio of Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus seemed like the primary orchestrators for the atmospheric changes. Interestingly, certain structures and areas became accessible or inaccessible depending on the weather conditions, such as the aforementioned Rocket Grunt's house and other locales, thanks to the piling of snow. However, while each season got 3 months dedicated to it, they rotated monthly. Spring was January, May, and September, summer was February, June, and October, and so on. And the changes would snap into place overnight. The crisp red and orange leaves of fall would result in giant drifts of snow the first day of the next month. While the seasons follow the pattern of spring, summer, fall, and winter, these changes seem harmful in their abrupt shifting, forcing both people and Pokemon to adapt quickly. Level 7. Under the Iceberg. 47. Other region seasons. While certain areas in prior games had seasons set, such as the snow on Mount Silver or the fall-like inspiration of Ecruteak City, they all seem to be set in time, never changing. Generation 5 introduced the concept of true shifting seasons, impacting the locales all over the region. Could the previous regions have been brought to a standstill, weather-wise, due to a lack of a native weather trio allowing the seasons to progress, or because they are all under the jurisdiction of Dialga, and, as far as the games go, does not allow for some form of passage of time for seasons, but still somehow allows for the world to grow naturally. This could introduce unique clusters of Pokemon that are truly suited to the set conditions of the locale in which they live, as they never have to compete as much with the environment for survival. In the anime, however, this doesn't seem to be as much of the case, and is most likely due to a lack of time, coding, or focus where the games are concerned. 48. N is half human, half Pokemon. As posted by Kreitzreal on Reddit, there are those that believe N is half human and half Pokemon. In Pokemon Generations, N says, "It's hard to call you this, but Father." Ghetsis gasps. Eventually, Ghetsis says, "Don't talk like a person, you freak. No real person could talk to a Pokemon." Ghetsis gasped when N calls him father because N truly is Ghetsis' flesh and blood, even if it disgusts him. Ghetsis also says he's not a human and gives random excuses to why N is not human. Ghetsis' body language implies N is his son, but he also tries to dehumanize N. It's all because Ghetsis is disgusted that N is half Pokemon, but the peculiar thing is that he can't ever directly state, "You're a freak, half human, half Pokemon," because if he revealed that fact, that'd be admitting that he contributed to his creation, implicating his own status and actions, and that disgusts him just as much that N is half Pokemon and half human. Should this become known, it could destroy any name or respect he's made for himself. This explains why there are so many father-son details, even though the canon is that N is merely an adopted child. most likely because Ghetsis claims him as adopted despite the obvious similarities. N hates selfish humans and likes Unova because it's the place that taught him how to live as a human, thus reconciling an aspect of himself that he has always denied his true heritage of by his father. As long as Pokemon and humans are in the same egg group, theoretically they can reproduce. Going back to the ancient texts in the Canalave library, specifically the Japanese translations, Pokemon and humans were known to have such relationships. Adding to this, Reddit user Ghostair notes that there's a Japanese mythological figure called Abe no Seme, whose father was a human and mother was a fox disguised as a human. That sounds incredibly similar to the fox-like Zoroark's abilities. In the myth, the fox woman fled the family in shame after being exposed, which may be why N and Ghetsis don't have a mother or wife respectively, and why Ghetsis is so shamed by the ordeal. 49. Pokemon Black and White aesthetics and alternate history. The very buildings, instruments, dress, and the like all appear quite different in areas such as Opelucid City. Pokemon Black follows the more electrical, futuristic element with guitars and modern instruments throughout. Pokemon White, by extension, seems more calm with more ancient structures, with moss growing in the stonework beneath the trainer's very feet, and flutes and harps to accentuate the music. Could this lend credence to the theory that different versions of the game are all alternate courses of history, thus explaining the preeminence of certain version-exclusive Pokemon, different teams, or different legendaries? 50. Pokemon World Tournament. This event truly saw trainers from around the world, i.e. past regions and continents, convene to compete. Could this have been the point of introduction for invasive species, or was this the sport that opened the regions up for more communication and trade? By allowing high-ranking trainers from all prior regions, such as Cynthia, the champion or former champion of Sinnoh, to compete, was this opening the region up for potential global alliances and peace? While the in-game maps show the Pokemon World Tournament facility to be on the mainland of Unova, the facility is actually on an island. How far out exactly, and is it a more centermost point for others to convene? Perhaps in some form of international waters. Level 8, The Abyss. 51. Wild Pokemon Encounters. A new feature in Generation 5 were the occurrences of dark grass, shaking grass, bubbling water, double battles in the wild, kicking up of dirt, etc., where wild Pokemon and items hide. These locations and events occurred without a Poké-Radar or a similar device. Besides making the world more lived in, it is apparent that a shadow looming over a bridge could signify a flying Pokemon swooping down on the trainer to attack, even on a main bridge with other people around. The sheer presence and ability for Pokemon to interact with the world around them that is slowly being industrialized by humans is evident. Could such extensions into Pokemon territory be the result of Pokemon's ganging up on you in double battles or others launching themselves at you, creating a mini form of war? 52. Zacian and Zamazenta travel to Unova. As covered by Ben Lemore, in Pokemon Theory Zacian and Zamazenta's Secret History in Unova, Zacian and Zamazenta are revealed perhaps to have traveled to Unova. Zacian and Zamazenta rested after the darkest day, and it seems they remained in hibernation all the way until the current events of the game. The human heroes who fought alongside them then hid away all knowledge of their existence. For 3,000 years, Galar forgot they ever lived. So when a new darkest day is about to happen, Sonia can't find any information on them in any of Galar's books. That's when she decides to look elsewhere. She says, "Listen, I dug into some literature from other regions, and I finally found something. Mentions of the sword Pokemon Zacian and the shield Pokemon Zamazenta. The writing said that those two Pokemon were born somewhere beyond the Slumbering Weald, sometime long, long ago." Sonia figured out where to find the sleeping legendaries by reading a book from a different region. Thus, some other region out there knows about Zacian and Zamazenta. But which one? In the Crown Tundra, we encounter Sonia again, and this time she's hot on the trail of Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion. These three weren't chosen randomly. Most returning legendaries in the DLC are confined to Dynamax adventures, but these Gen 5 legendaries get special treatment. And the Swords of Justice quest is even more fleshed out in the hunt for the new legendary Galarian bird trio. Why is that? Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion are known as the Swords of Justice in the Unova region. While you were off completing your gym challenge, Sonia was trying to uncover the truth about the Darkest Day. After discovering the hidden statues in Stoan's side, Sonia began researching legendary Pokemon connected to swords and shields. It makes perfect sense that this would lead her to the legends of Unova, and in those legends, the Swords of Justice protected Pokemon from the effects of a war amongst humans. As a result, Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion distrust humans to this day. When they're not actively protecting weaker Pokemon, they prefer to retreat into isolation. During the DLC, Professor Sonia becomes completely convinced that they're hiding somewhere in the Crown Tundra, and it turns out she's right. It's a quiet place with relatively few humans, but there are plenty of places like that in the Pokemon world. Why is Sonia so sure that they'd come to Galar? It's because she already found a connection between the Swords of Justice and Zacian and Zamazenta. Think back to what she said about her research. This other region she talks about knows that Zacian and Zamazenta were born somewhere beyond the Slumbering Weald. And what's beyond the Slumbering Weald? The Crown Tundra. If the Swords of Justice met Galar's legendaries at some point in the past, it would make perfect sense for them to visit the Crown Tundra. But is this even possible, given what we know of the timeline of events? Zacian and Zamazenta have been asleep for 3,000 years, so any cross-region meetings must have happened before that. Black and White explain that wars ravaged the Unova region in ancient times until the royal family established order with the power of a legendary dragon Pokemon. Later, two princes had conflicting ideas about how to rule, so the dragons split in two, Zekrom and Reshiram, and civil war broke out again. Those two princes ruled from separate castles, which were destroyed ages before the games take place. One of those castles, the Abyssal Ruins, houses a relic crown belonging to the royal family. And, wouldn't you know it, the item description says it's 3,000 years old. In other words, the long period of war in Unova happened over 3,000 years ago. Perfect timing. Zacian and Zamazenta could have fought alongside the Swords of Justice during Unova's pre-Monarch Wars. Then they went back home, leaving legends of their heroism behind, and faced their greatest challenge yet, the Darkest Day. Speaking of which, there might be one final clue in the form of, well, their forms. Zacian and Zamazenta were able to triumph on the Darkest Day thanks to their special items. The Rusted Sword and Rusted Shield transformed the two into their crowned form. In their crowned form, they each gain a special Behemoth move that deals double damage to Dynamax Pokemon. But if you take away those items, the two wolves take on a weaker form called Hero of Many Battles. This suggests perhaps that they were known as heroic fighters long before the Darkest Day. That's not surprising, since saving the world seems to be in their nature. But if Galar lost all knowledge of them, who preserved this nickname? Who was passing down legends of their many battles? Based on the data we have, the best answer is the people of the Unova region. 53. DNA Splicer. Utilized in fusing either Reshiram or Zekrom to Kyurem, the DNA Splicer is integral to the union of such beings. The DNA Splicers seem to be a more ancient creation, seen in Drayden's Care or found in the Abyssal Ruins. As Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem once were conjoined to create the ultimate first dragon, perhaps it was this DNA Splicer that aided in separating them originally, besides just conforming to each of the two princes' will. In Pokemon Generations The King Returns, the lights of the activated DNA splicers seem to hover over Kyurem in a series of concentric blue rings that shift to red as Reshiram is about to be absorbed. While not wholly identical, the visual similarities to the red chain that bound some of Dialga or Palkia's power is evident. Could such an ancient civilization not have created this tool to separate or bring such a powerful Pokemon to heal, potentially as a means to control it, not simply being split by truth or ideals? Could this not be used to bring about the great dragon's return and the terrible power it can bring? And that concludes the Pokemon Generation 5 Iceberg. If you have any critiques or theories of your own, jot them down below. I hope you enjoyed following along, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks!